Hello everyone and welcome back to me on the Apex. In today's episode we're doing a 2023 season recap.
So firstly, what a season. This season has been massively overhated for the Max dominance, I think, because every race, especially in quali, the qualifying sessions this year have been unbelievable.
Yeah, they have, they really have.
And look, the racing's been spectacular and yeah, it has been, apart from the Red Bull domination, it has been a very, very good season.
It has. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through every single driver in every team and just talk about their season and what we've seen and things like that. So we'll start off obviously with Max. Dominant, I think we need to find a better word because we've been saying this the whole time.
Yeah.
He has just been dominant as hell. And you've actually got the stats for
all the records he's broken this season. Yeah. So most wins in a season, highest percentage of wins in a season, most consecutive wins, most podiums in a season, most points in a season, most laps led in a season, most sprint wins in a season, most wins in a singular country, and just so much more. It carries on going, and look, it has been one of the greatest single seasons I think we have ever seen in this sport. Yeah. I think only rivalled, I would say, by Jim Clark's, I think it was 1967 season, where he got bored of F1, so he won the F1 season and then went and won F2 and won Formula Ford and won like DTM and stuff. It was just, I think that's the only season that kind of rivals this, because Max has just been on another level. Yeah. And I think last year he wasn't the best in qualifying and he's just perfected it now. And I think that what we are witnessing right now is peak Max Verstappen. Yeah, so. We will look back at this and go, wow. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, when we sort of witnessed the whole peak Lewis Hamilton, I think it's going to be similar to that. You know, we're going to see a whole run of Max, like winning the championship, and then all of a sudden it's going to change. So like we'll see another Max coming, hopefully Lando. But yeah, I mean, just an incredible season for Max. But massive congratulations to him for that.
Oh my god, yeah. And obviously he's currently, as we speak, on a 7-winning streak. Yeah. He needs to win 3 more races next season in a row. Obviously, so Bahrain, Saudi and then China, I think. If he wins that, he equals his own record already in that season. And then, honestly, he could carry on going. And who knows what that record is going to be when he... Because even though we say that it's unbeatable, I think it's beatable. Especially at his level, especially with the level that Red Bull could be at next season. Yeah. They could be another level.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on to Checo, obviously, the other half of Red Bull.
It was promising at the start of the season. Obviously, he nearly led the championship in Miami if he hadn't just thrown away that win. And since Miami, I think that kind of took a massive toll on his mindset. He realised that Max is just on another level. Yeah. And it's a shame because he really did fall off since then. And obviously, his quality's let down massively. Obviously, the amount of Q2 exits he's had this year is just ridiculous. And because his race pace has been semi-strong. Wasn't as strong as last year, but definitely has been semi-strong.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think the whole mindset and the mental, knowledge of knowing that Max is so dominant and you've got to live up to that expectation by being in the Red Bull, I think has really taken a toll on him. I don't think he necessarily shows that as a driver. You wouldn't really know, but I do think it is taking a hidden toll on him.
I do think, 100%. And look, it's a shame because if we look at 2020 Checo, he was absolutely storming it. He was in that racing point. I think he was 4th in the drivers. Everyone was saying he's one of the best drivers on the grid. He's had one hell of a season. Look at that Checo, and now look at him now. People are saying he doesn't deserve to be in a C. He's got half of the points as Max. And I think this really does show that even though people are saying it's the most dominant car in Formula 1 history, it wasn't entirely dominant. I mean, look at the 2020 Merc. They were 6-7 tenths, both of the drivers, in every qualifying session, and just leagues ahead of everyone else. Yeah. So I really think that Checo has shown that this Red Bull isn't as dominant as people are saying it is, and it is just Max kind of bringing it from everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree. I definitely agree. Obviously, we'll go on to now Ferrari. We've got Charles. I mean...
He's had horrible luck this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the team haven't really helped him out.
No, they really haven't. But honestly, without his luck and without the team, that completely screw him over at some points. I mean, look at Austin, look at Bahrain at the start of the season, look at Brazil where he crashed on the formation lap because of a car fault. Yeah. I mean, I genuinely think he could have fought Perez for P2 this season, 100%. And he's shown this season that he's still one of the best qualifiers on the grid for sure, and still definitely has that edge over Carlos.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we'll talk about Carlos now. I mean, the only non-Red Bull win of the season, that's a pretty big feat.
It is a big feat. And do you know what? So obviously we look back at Singapore, Ferrari kind of sacrificed Charles once again to get Carlos that win. Ended up working out, which was good for them. But look, Charles, I definitely think should have had a win this season. There was points where the car did have the pace and he was on top of the car enough to get a win. And it was just a shame. But Carlos, he did get, I don't want to call it lucky because he performed, that was the one race weekend where everything came together for him and he was perfect. And that's what you needed to beat Red Bull this season. But quali pace really did let him down. The amount of times we've seen him knocked out in Q2, Q3, Q1, Q2, it really did let him down.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that really says it all. I mean, it was just pure bad luck for a lot of it. You know, Charles could have been on the podium. It's definitely.
I think he missed out on about 5 podiums this season just through
luck.
But
I feel like that's just typical Ferrari at this point.
It is. It really is, and I mean, I would hate to be a Ferrari fan at this point. Quite frankly, I would hate it because every race I'd be watching it, going, "How are we going to screw up this time?"
Literally, that's it really. We'll go on to Mercedes quickly. I mean, Lewis, first of all.
I think he had a better season than last season for sure. Obviously,
I think so.
Outpointed George. But horrible qualifying. Horrible qualifying. Obviously, he did get a pole. But apart from that, it wasn't good.
I mean, but then on the other hand, his race pace.
Unbelievable. One of the best on the grid.
In that car, it was incredible, and I think. I mean, but 2 years now without a win. 2
years without a win, and obviously I saw BBC Sport post that, and people going, "Oh well, yeah, but this, that, and the other." It's been 2 years. He is said to be the greatest of all time. He obviously is the most successful driver of all time. There has been multiple opportunities in these last 2 years where he should have got a win. I look back to Austin last year. I look to. There's been multiple, and obviously a British Grand Prix last year as well. We definitely had a chance. The car definitely had the pace, and look, he should have got a win by now in this car. This car was debatably more of a dog than last year's car, but at the same time, he's had opportunities and he's thrown that away. And we've seen when the car's on pace, George has actually got a better performance out of the car, which is very surprising. But look, it's been a shame for Lewis. Hopefully he'll get that win next season, but I can't see it happening.
I can't see it happening, especially with what we've said with, the whole McLaren really coming up there, Aston Martin, Ferrari. Like we talk about the wind tunnel, we talked about them, they're getting more wind tunnel time now, so there's chances for improvement. They've just got so much to compete with.
They do, and look, people are saying, they've sacked Mike Elliott, who kind of made all the top decisions for this car, and that 2024 is going to be the year where Merck comes back at Red Bull, and I really don't see what evidence they had for that. No. They had the chance, like people were saying this last year, and they fell even further back this year. Despite them getting P2 in the Constructors, I really don't think this is a positive season for Merck. I think it's even less positive than last year.
I think so.
And honestly, they could be fighting for P3, P4, especially with the Aston have understood their upgrades. They're going to be upgrading massively through the winter now. They're going to come back punching. McLaren are going to come back punching. Obviously, we've got the wind tunnel now. And obviously, Ferrari are going to be coming back punching as well. I think, really, Merck are going to be struggling to kind of stay competitive, especially with Red Bull next season. Obviously, this could fail massively and Merck just be super dominant, but it's not going to happen. But look, if we look at George, he's just had a very unlucky season, I think.
I think so. I mean, extremely unlucky. I mean, he's pretty much equal with Lewis in quali.
Yes, and actually ahead of Lewis in quali if you count the sprint qualies as well. And race pace has really let him down this season. But obviously talking about luck, he had the retirement in Australia, which he was actually kind of leading that race. Obviously Max would have flew past him. But obviously Singapore, he had the crash as well. If it weren't for those two, he would have been ahead. He probably would have been P4. But look, his race pace had let him down. But obviously with his quali pace being so high and his race pace being so low, it has led to him and Lewis kind of banging wheels on tracks a lot, which I'm not gonna lie, I love to see it.
It is really good to see. If you think back to when Lewis was on top, at Mercedes, and then obviously George was at Williams, and there was that kind of I don't even know. Like there was that kind of like Lewis was scared of him.
He really was. And look, we saw Russell's always had this potential to kind of get to Lewis. We saw it in Sakir 2020 when he jumped in Lewis's car and immediately was faster than Valtteri. And we kind of went, is there going to be a potential here for George to kind of get an edge on Lewis? And we saw last year that he did. He outpointed him. And yeah, do you know what? I think Merc really do have a problem on their hands. If for some, let's say 2026, they get a championship competing car, George and Lewis are going to be very equal on pace, and that is going to cause serious problems. I mean, imagine if Max had a Lewis next to him in the car. It would cause serious sparks, and you know what? I am right here for that.
I'm here for it as well, but I also, before I forget, we'll quickly talk about something a bit different. In terms of Mercedes though, I don't know if you've seen Monster Energy have pulled out of Mercedes.
Which is very strange.
Yeah, it's strange, but I read an article on it, and they've obviously gone to McLaren now. But that is purely because they've looked at the data, and over 70 to 80% of Gen Z, so 2000s kids or younger than 25, support Lando or McLaren.
Wow.
Right? So their thought process is that's our target market. We've got to leave Mercedes and go to where the target audience is. And they've moved to McLaren, and that is a bit of a, I don't know, it's shaking me up a little bit, because I don't know if we're going to see more of that in the season, because like our brand's going to move to the more like successful, down to earth, like with the kids teams, which are so-called McLaren.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for McLaren. And
I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff kind of backing that up as well, because I mean, we look at the 2018 McLaren. That car, I'll put a photo up now if I can remember. It has 0 sponsors on it. 0 sponsors on that car. And now we look at it now. There's not a single empty space on that car for sponsorship. So it really is kind of backing up that sponsors are looking at the cars and going, what drivers are actually down to earth and getting to the fans? And Lewis has an unbelievable fan base. We know that across the world. But the younger fans are going for Lando, for Charles, not for George. I think George is I think his media tameness and his kind of way of racing and his kind of, I don't want to say lack of success, but he's not up there as often as the Landos, the Charles, especially when you give them a car. And George's been given that car and hasn't actually got to that level. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next few years where those fan bases kind of go.
Well, I agree as well. And also, I hate to say it, but social media is such a big thing, right? And that influences a lot of Gen Z, so say. And George doesn't have a big of a say on social media as someone in comparison to Lando, who does Quadrant, who does other things. He literally brings out a clothing brand with other brands all the time. He's got the whole of Quadrant, the team he's brought up himself, and like the whole YouTube channel and everything like that. He does esports. Obviously a lot of the drivers do, but it does make a difference.
Absolutely.
Because people are going to go to Lando, because if you watch Quadrant, you'll then watch Lando and you'll support Lando.
Yeah, and also Lando reaches to a lot more fan base as well. I mean, one of my mates sent me a snap the other day, and Lando was just live streaming Fortnite with a couple of guys. It's like, this is what's actually bringing him in the fan base, and the other drivers aren't doing this. And it is going to lead to people like Monster going, actually our money is more well placed with drivers like Lando, who actually have shown, we'll go on to it, but have shown a lot of promise seen as well on the racetrack as well, which is the important bit.
Absolutely, but we'll take a quick break and then move on to Alpine.
Yeah. Right, so moving on to Alpine, if we start with Gasly, I think he's come into this team and he's definitely had the edge on Ocon, but he hasn't outshone him. Obviously his race pace and quality have just been kind of solid, and have been very consistent but solid, but it's in no means domination.
No, and I mean, everything's just kind of mid.
Yeah.
You know, like race pace and quality pace
just thereabouts.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with Ocon. Obviously, he was the previous team leader.
Yes.
He's been there for a while, but he's just been mid as well. His quality pace has definitely let him down at times, which has led to him not getting points. But again, he's had certain weekends where he's just on another level. I mean, you look at Monaco, he could have got pole in Monaco. I mean, could you imagine Esteban Ocon winning the Monaco Grand Prix? Like, it could have happened, but these weren't frequent, and that was the problem. I mean, you had him qualifying P17 in Abu Dhabi, but then him having a drive from P19 to P4 in Vegas. Yeah. So it was just so kind of rollercoastery for Ocon, which led to him pretty much being on the same points as Gasly.
Yeah.
And I think for him to try and cement his kind of seat in Alpine, he needs to do better next season.
Absolutely, and I think also they're both very on the same level of pace. You know, there's not a notable faster driver or a top team leader, so say. As you said before, Ocon was the previous team leader.
Yeah.
So it probably feels really weird, and it's probably affecting him mentally as well, that he's got someone like Gasly who's come along that's on the same level of pace, and it does lead to a lot of clashes on
the track. Yes, and obviously we know that Gasly and Ocon haven't been friends since karting. I think no one knows why, but they just haven't been.
Yeah.
And we've seen that this season. I mean, the Vegas. Do you remember the Vegas overtake with Gasly and Ocon,
yes.
where they were battling like hell? They were feisty with each other, and I mean that's what we want to see.
Yeah, it is.
But at the same time, that team, and we've said it all season. Obviously, Otmar left in Spa. They haven't had a team principal since then. The leadership in that team is just gone. Obviously, Oscar left, Fernando jumped ship, and I mean, it's worrying times for Alpine. I really do think that they're kind of going to drop back now, especially if the top 5 kind of move away. I don't see them moving with them.
No, neither do I. No. I just don't see the improvement. But talking about improvements,
we'll McLaren.
McLaren. I mean, what a mid-season comeback!
Unbelievable.
I remember, reminiscing.
Oh gosh, let's not go back there.
no. I remember it's a good thing. Silverstone, right? Silverstone. And I was texting you because you were in Spain.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a struggle for you to watch the race.
Oh yes.
And obviously I was at Silverstone, and I was texting you away in Connie, and I said, Sam, this is going to go turbo.
Yeah.
McLaren, I said, honestly,
one. And I did not believe you.
And you were like, you're chatting, no.
Yeah, I really did.
Not. And then boom.
2-3, quality in Silverstone. I was like, oh my god. And obviously, I think, I don't want to, but let's go back to Bahrain, where I was kind of like, if we get out of Q1, I'll be happy. And it just showed no promise. And then I think it was around the Baku time when Mika Hakkinen kind of said in an interview that, look, McLaren have upgrades. They're going to be battling Red Bull. And I went, what is this going on? Yeah. Mika Hakkinen's lost his clogs. And then the upgrade package came in Austria, came in Silverstone, and we were just so quick. And it kind of went from hoping to get in the tail end of the points to we should be getting poles, we should be getting wins. And I mean, look at Lando, he's had an unbelievable season. He has cemented himself as one of the top drivers in the sport. Top 5, I think, for sure now. Yeah. And he showed that when you give him a car, he can perform and battle with Max. We saw him literally wheel to wheel with Max in Brazil. However, he has made small mistakes which have been crucial. He should have got pole in Qatar.
Yeah.
He should have got pole in Abu Dhabi. He should have got pole in Hungary. He should have got pole in Silverstone. And we just look at those. He then possibly could have got a win. I mean, he should have got pole in Brazil as well, but that was the team strategy, so I'll let him off there. Mm-hmm. But it really does show that these small mistakes that he is making when the car is at his peak are crucial. And then going back to Max, he doesn't make those mistakes. No. So it really just shows where Lando needs to improve, especially going into next year, where, look, McLaren feasibly could give him a car to compete for a driver's title, which makes me very excited. But he needs to iron out these very small mistakes because they are going to let him down.
Absolutely, I agree. And we'll obviously go on to kind of Oscar on that note. I mean, a rookie season, you talk about rookie seasons, but he's just done so well in that car. I mean, you know, Lando has outperformed him, but obviously...
You'd expect that.
You would expect that, and also Oscar has just proven that he's definitely meant to be there, right? He's
Absolutely.
Been outperformed, but he's still performed incredibly well. And just lived up to his hype.
He really has. I mean, I genuinely would put a strong debate for him having the best rookie season since definitely Max in 2015 in Toro Rosso, even though his season was unbelievable. But I think Oscar's rookie season is only kind of parallel with Lewis's in 2007. I mean, let's not forget, Oscar has had 2 podiums this season and a sprint race victory. Yeah. He has won a race this season, and rookies don't do this.
No,
Oscar is another level of rookie. Oh my god, you compare the two and they're just black and white. Yeah. And I mean, that is what deserved Oscar. I don't know how McLaren have done it, but they've locked him in since until 2026, which is definitely a good sign. Yeah. But Oscar has deserved it.
I think so. I agree. And on that note, we'll go on to Alfa Romeo. I mean, I think every single podcast we've said it's not been a great race for them. Apart
from just the kind of standout ones where, like in Qatar, when they somehow went from like P19 on the grid to both of them in the points. But yeah, the car has never been great, and it's just a shame. But if we go on to the drivers, Bottas nowhere near the level he was at last season.
No, absolutely, and that's such a shame to see because you know he was a great driver as much as it was kind of a similar situation to sort of Max and Checo.
Yes,
in a way.
Although I would say that Lewis and Bottas were closer.
They were closer. They were, but it's a similar situation where you've got one driver that's better than the other, and it's really difficult for the other driver to really prove that they should be there. And obviously he's been put into the Alfa Romeo, and we hope that you know he's becoming. He's the top driver in this team.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about that. I think that Bottas is the number one driver at Alfa Romeo. Because Zhou, I would say, has had a very disappointing season. I mean, he showed a little bit of promise at the start of the season. I kind of promised him that he was going to be kind of outperforming Bottas, but he's been nowhere near that. And I genuinely do think his seat will be at risk for 2025. And the only reason he has got the seat for 2024 is the amount that Sauber have invested in marketing for the Chinese Grand Prix. That is the only reason why I think he's got a seat, because his performances really haven't lived up to it.
No, and I agree. And it's a very weird situation with Alfa Romeo, and I hope that they're going to improve next year, but I really doubt.
I really doubt
that
it as
there's
well.
going to be improvements.
And look, I think that. I mean, if we look at Haas, they have been trying to improve. Their tyre wear has been the issue. If they can get on that tyre wear, they will have pace. And look, we'll make predictions, I think, next season in the pre-season testing, but I would predict Alfa Romeo to be bottom of the crop of teams.
Yeah.
So,
no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But quickly talk about Teo while we're at it. Look, he has been getting a lot of hate. Since he won the championship. Look, he's only had one feature race win. He has been disappointing. He hasn't been. He has been incredibly consistent. He's had 10 podiums. He's obviously had that incredibly dominant feature race win at the start of the season. He's been plagued with bad luck. People don't talk about that enough. People say, oh, Vesti's had bad luck. Vesti crashed himself in Spa. Vesti crashed himself in Monza. Teo has actually had bad luck. And look, I'm everything crossed for a seat in 2025. I'm hoping and praying he does. But I'm hoping he goes to Super Formula next year, gets a seat there, gets some racecraft experience. But yeah, definitely deserved the F2 Championship, and I'm very excited to see where his career goes.
I have a question. If he does Super Formula, oh my god, English. If he does Super Formula, will you watch that?
I will.
Is that another thing to add to the list?
Yeah, well, I'll still count it under the Alfa Romeo section, but even though it's in Asia, so I'll be waking up at about 6 AM. But I will be doing it. For Teo, but then honestly, I was saying this the other day as well, that I was like, if he went to Formula E, would I be happy? Yes, because then I'd go to a Formula E race again, like we're going to be doing in Berlin, and be able to get an autograph and get a selfie from them. So, if he went to Formula E for just that, I'd be happy, before a Formula 1 drive.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. And then if I go to a Formula E race and he's there and you're not, I will literally get everything signed and a video of him saying hi Sam.
Oh yeah. For birthdays, Christmases for the next 10 years.
I'll be like, can you just say happy birthday? And then can you say happy Christmas?
Yeah.
And I'll just save that, and then every year just send
send it,
repeat. Standing order.
But one day I will meet him because I need to.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like, he sent me signed caps for free and stuff, so he is a really nice guy, and he's definitely deserved the Formula 2 Championship this season.
Definitely.
But moving on to Aston Martin. What an improvement! They went from P7 to possibly P2, second fastest car at points this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we said it at the beginning. I think I remember, us sitting in Tube Kitchen being what is going on with Aston Martin? Absolutely insane. Like Alonso, for example, in a league of his own.
Oh my god, absolutely.
So good to see him performing so well in the car.
He's shown that he's still at his best, and he said in an interview after Abu Dhabi that this has been the best season of his career. He's won 2 titles, and he's saying this season has been the greatest season he has had in Formula 1, and that says a lot. He is 42 years of age, performing at the peak of his career, and Aston Martin need to sign him. Yeah. Sign him until 2026, 2027, because I really want to see him fighting for a title. And I genuinely do believe that obviously Aston Martin have got on top of their upgrades, they understood them, And I think that they will come into next year fighting. They will come into next year fighting, definitely for podiums, possibly for wins, if Red Bull don't have this dominance, which I'm predicting. But look, it's so good to see. But obviously, moving on to Stroll, it's been outperformed like hell.
Outperformed like hell, but I do think in the last few races we've seen, he has changed incredibly.
He has, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, like, it's a different person. All of a sudden he's got a moustache and he can drive okay. Like, what is going on?
He's channeling his inner Mansell.
He is, he literally is. But yeah, going back, I mean, largely disappointing because... he was being outperformed all the time. The car was in a good position, and he was just, terrible in qualifying.
And look, there was so much promise at the start of the season because he broke both of his hands.
Yes.
And then came into Bahrain, somehow got P5 with 2 broken wrists, and we were like, oh my god, this is going to be incredible.
Yeah.
And then that was the only good race he's had this season, apart from Brazil and Vegas. And it's like, well, what happened there? When the car was at its peak, you were performing at your worst. And it was just a shame. And look, hopefully Aston Martin bring a car for next season. Hopefully they're competitive. And hopefully Stroll can kind of pick up his game, because he really cost his team P2 in the constructors, I think, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. But we'll take a quick break and then move on to Haas. Okay, so we'll move on to Haas. I mean, we've talked about it all season. Tyre wear. Tyre
wear has been the bane of their existence, and look, they have shown pace in quali. I mean, look at Hulkenberg. He if his lap wasn't deleted, he would have got the front row in Canada, and he would have got a podium in Australia if the red flag had literally not been held out for another sector. He would have literally got his first podium in a Haas. But yeah, tyre wear has just been the bane of their life.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously at the start of the season he was doing really well. But I mean,
it's just a shame. But I definitely think Hulkenberg has been outperforming Magnussen consistently, especially in the races. Hulkenberg has definitely had an edge on Magnussen. And look, with Behrman in the wings, kind of snapping at Magnussen's heels, I definitely think that Magnussen needs to have a very good season next season, because look, I'm going to talk about F2 next year a little bit because I'm very, very excited for it. Obviously, Teo won't be competing, so I need to find someone else, and that person will be Kimi Antonelli because he is just Senna reborn. But look, with Behrman and Kimi kind of in the wings, both of them kind of going to be strong next year, and massive. The silly season next season is going to be unbelievable. I think 15 drivers are out of contract, so it's going to be mad. And with Behrman definitely showing promise in FP1, promise in testing, Magnussen will need to perform next year in order to keep his seat.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously they're going to want to look to get the next generation in after all the contracts are out of time. So it's just really a case of if he performs or not.
Yeah, and honestly with Magnussen, I don't think he'll perform. I mean, look, he's had highlights, but those have been kind of overshone by a series of lowlights. Yeah. And look, it hasn't been strong from Magnussen. It's been definitely... Hulkenberg has come into his car and completely wrecked him. I mean, look, Mazepin was slower than Schumacher. Schumacher was slower than Magnussen. Magnussen's been slower than Hulkenberg. Can you imagine if Mazepin was still in that car with Hulkenberg?
Yeah.
It would just be another level. So fair play to Hulkenberg because he's come into this team and just completely destroyed it.
Yeah.
But Magnussen needs to up his game.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll move on to AlphaTauri, obviously a bit of a long one.
Yes.
4 drivers to talk about. So we'll talk about Yuki first.
Fantastic year. Yeah. Fantastic year from Yuki. I mean, we said it last podcast. Yeah. He really has kind of come into his own and cemented himself as the team leader.
Yeah, exactly. Even with Danny Rick, obviously, him coming back to that team, everyone's kind of like... I feel like everyone just hypes him so much. And it's just gone a bit like...
Yeah, it's kind of just been like an egg crack.
Yeah,
it's just like,
okay, cool.
But yeah, Yuki has been consistent in quality, consistency in race. I mean, in the race, at the start of the season, he was banging in the P10s, P11s, left, right and centre. If they had had the AlphaTauri that they had at the end of the season, look, he could have been battling Alpine.
Yeah.
Like, he's been that consistent. And I genuinely do think he has kind of shone himself very well. Possibly an Aston seat on the future, possibly a Red Bull seat, and Danny Rick really hasn't shown himself well against Yuki.
Yeah, exactly, and obviously we'll talk about how Danny Rick came to get his seat. On that note, we'll talk about Nick de Vries. Obviously, he was in the AlphaTauri seat before the start of the season, and obviously he, no longer has a seat, and he's gone to Formula E now.
But I do think he was overhated because
so.
he was semi-close to Yuki. Obviously, he was never actually... I don't think he ever over-raced him. But he was... I mean, if you look at the gap to Sargent, it was nowhere near.
I was going to say that, you know, it was this... If not, Sargent's, you know, rookie season has been worse than
Absolutely.
Freeze. But then again, when you look at it, I suppose AlphaTauri is a better team.
It is.
You know,
and look, I would...
Red Bull.
Yeah, I would say the how am I going to word this? I would say over a season the Williams has definitely been more consistent, but at its peaks the AlphaTauri has been quicker.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame for Nick that in his time in the car the AlphaTauri was at its worst.
Yeah.
And I think that has led to a lot of people going, oh, he doesn't deserve the seat, blah blah blah. But actually, if you look at the gaps of the teammates, it was a lot closer. So it's a shame he was never near the points. Was his kick out of the seat warranted? I say no, but if we then look at Danny Rick, he hasn't really been close to Yuki, and I think if you'd gone back to when the AlphaTauri was at its worst, I think Danny Rick would have been putting in results that Nick would have been.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think there's been any, you know, good... Like, I think they just brought Danny Rick in because obviously the hype was there. You know, everyone wanted to see him do well, and I just really think he's performed pretty much the same as Nick would have done.
Yeah.
And I just think it's such a shame. But obviously Nick has gone to Formula E now, so it's not the worst thing in the world.
No.
But yeah.
I would say someone who did come into the AlphaTauri and prove their own was Liam Lawson. He shined beautifully in the period that he had the car. Obviously, the car was in its kind of upgrading stage, but he somehow got points in Singapore. He was very close to Yuki, especially in quality, and sometimes outperforming him as well.
Yeah.
And good promise. And look, I think it's pretty much assured that he is getting a seat at AlphaTauri for 2025, which means that one of either Yuki and Danny is out.
Yeah.
So next year is incredibly important for both the drivers, but I could definitely see Danny Rick being out of Formula One.
Yeah. So could I, and it's such a shame, really. But, yeah, I mean, from what we've said, yeah.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of change for AlphaTauri next year. Obviously, apparently it's going to be called Sponsor 1, Racing Bulls Sponsor 2, which is just like, ugh. But anyway, and obviously Lauren Mekies is coming in to team principal the team, I believe, which Ferrari going over to AlphaTauri, God help them. But look, hopefully it's a stronger season. Obviously they're going to be taking on more Red Bull parts to kind of try and improve their pace. But look, it needs to be a stronger season for Danny Rick, otherwise Yuki's just going to outshine him. Danny Rick was brought into AlphaTauri to outshine Yuki immediately and kind of prove why he should have got that Red Bull seat.
Yeah.
And he hasn't.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll move on to Williams. I mean, last of all, we've got Alex, first of all.
Unbelievable season.
I mean, yeah, he's just been one on his own, isn't he? He's been putting cars in the places where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like, you know...
And look, with Williams, James Vaz has come in and completely refreshed that team, and thank God, because it needed it. And we're now seeing the Williams in places where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it is Alex putting in the qualifying positions, him doing the undercut on everyone, and then just choo-chooing in the Alex train. Just everyone behind him, unbelievable defending, and he really did carry Williams.
I was going to say, yeah, he is pretty much the reason why Williams got P7.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
But then obviously, in comparison to Logan, I mean, underwhelming. Obviously, we've talked so much about rookie seasons and stuff like that, but yeah, I mean...
It's been so underwhelming.
Yeah, because he did show so much promise.
He did, and in Bahrain, he was... Why, with Stroll, with Sargent, they were just on another level in Bahrain. I mean, Logan did have a spin which was forced by another driver, so it wasn't his fault. And he was very close to Alex in Bahrain, and we were like, oh my god, this is going to be brilliant for Williams. Logan had an okay F2 season. He only had one, obviously he was a rookie and kind of got quite high up the drivers, so we was like, okay, he has promise. Bahrain showed a lot of promise, and then just fell back since then, and his only real kind of good performance has been in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the seat is definitely at risk, I think.
I would say so, and obviously look, Vesti, Dragovic, both in the wings, both won in F1 seats. I don't think they're going to put Pourchaire in the car because obviously he is closely affiliated with Alfa Romeo, well, Sauber now. But look, I could see it happening both ways. I could see him getting replaced, but I could also see him keeping that seat because Williams has invested so much money into him, and therefore it is on the knife edge, and it'll be interesting to see what decision James Vowles makes. Probably as we are speaking, he is in a boardroom trying to make that decision. Yeah. So but he was nowhere near Alex, and does he deserve that seat? No.
No, it's questionable, isn't it? But that rounds up the whole drivers for 2023 and the teams as well. I will actually add that as well quickly. In FP1 in Abu Dhabi, we had a lot of drivers in the car, obviously reserve drivers because you have to have a certain amount of time in the car. We had people like Jake Dennis.
Yes.
And the whole lot, I mean pretty much like half of the grid.
And also in post-season testing as well, which just happened as well, they also had Jake Dennis in the car, they had Vessi, they had Bourchier. So, I mean, obviously, look, we saw Jake Dennis win the Formula E Championship. Yeah. We saw him then outperform Isaac in the FP1. Yeah. I don't want to say it, but could Jake Dennis be putting his little pinky toe in for a race seat somewhere? Because look, he is part of the Red Bull Driver Academy, he is their development driver, he is their sim driver, he is showing promise. Look, he's in FE next year. If he wins FE next year, could he kind of be vying for a seat? We saw Nick do this, we saw Nick go to FE, win the championship, get substituted in, and perform brilliantly,
and this is it.
And then get a seat. So I would love, personally, I'd love to see another British driver on the grid.
Yeah, I mean,
with Jake Dennis and
Jake. Yeah, I mean, he had such a good season in FE.
Oh yeah.
You know, if he wins 2 championships, I mean, how could you say no?
How could you say no?
But I really think he's not on the pace. Like, for example, I wouldn't think to see him in a Red Bull.
No, I wouldn't either, and I would see him in maybe. I haven't thought about this, but obviously Andretti are coming into the sport in 2025, fingers crossed. He is currently driving for Andretti in Formula E. If he wins the championship next year, I never thought about that. I am buying this 2025 Jake Dennis in the Andretti Formula 1 car. It's happening.
Said it here first, guys.
Said it here first. I'm starting this rumour, it's going to be all over Twitter. But it is happening. Jake Dennis is going to be in Formula 1.
Yeah. No,
But he deserves it, I would say.
I think so, definitely. But yeah, that's pretty much a wrap of 2023.
Wow.
What a season it's been.
What a season. What, we've done about 25 podcasts?
Absolutely insane.
Absolutely insane. But so many more to come next year. Very excited for it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for watching.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye.